Hey everyone, this is the Handstand Principals video taking you through all the basics of understanding how we balance, how the core controls the body, and hand and finger positioning, all kinds of things that you should be aware of as you start your handstand journey. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is understanding how we balance. And to do that, I'm going to take you through how we actually balance on our feet. And we've got used to this. We've all learnt to balance and then walk when we're like 1 or 2 or 3, so it's a long time away. Most of you probably can't really remember it at this point, and it's kind of an accepted fact. I'm standing here and talking to you, and while our hands aren't specifically designed to be able to walk on, they're not the most ideal circumstances to do it, but at the same time, the same process of learning is going to be applied. Now, I want you to stand up now if you're sat down, and just come onto one foot and close your eyes and move around a bit. Just feel how you have to actually think a little bit about balancing, especially, and you come forward, you're pushing through your toes, you come back, and you might have to move a little bit if you're like me, but the key is that you're feeling how your foot is engaging and working to be able to hold you up. This is the same thing that happens when we're standing up, except it's so minor and so small that you're not really noticing it. As you get better and better at your handstands, the adjustments don't become like this, they become just small adjustments, making it like you see someone holding their handstand and it looks like they're doing nothing and they're perfectly still, whereas in fact they're actually making many adjustments per second to be able to maintain that nice, solid, stable position that most people will see. The next bit is around stacking, and we're going to keep on with talking about our feet. If we're standing on one foot and we move back and forward and back, notice how your hip is adjusting as well as the foot. And here, what it's working on doing is maintaining that center of mass in the right position to be able to hold a handstand. The same thing applies when you're doing your handstands, whether it's 2 or 1 arm. You're going to use your shoulder as almost like a second line of defense to be able to maintain that position and hold your handstand. And throughout this course, I've really built on these principles to be able to get you the strength and coordination and movement patterning to be able to use both your hands but also your shoulders to be able to maintain your handstand for longer. And it's something as we go through, you're going to be able to build on more and more. And that comes to stacking. You want with your handstand to get your shoulders over your hands, which a lot of people don't do, and then your hips over your shoulders. These are 2 crucial aspects that are going to make holding your handstand a lot easier. When I see a lot of people trying to kick up, they're often like this and say, Elliot, I can't get up. Whereas if you come up like so, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to be able to, because I'm stacked up. Creating that straight line is going to make it a lot easier. It doesn't matter as much about the legs. The legs can swing and do anything they want to, really, depending on what your objective is with it. So that's talking through how you actually balance. Then it comes to bending the arms. So when some people I've seen try to learn handstand, I see them try and hold it with their arms bent up against the wall or maybe even freestanding. And this makes it harder. May not seem it, like especially if you haven't got the strength to do it, you're like, oh, it's fine, Elliot, I can do it. I show you just being so finicky with everything. Which, yes, is the case. But the reason why you want straight arms with it is that it's actually going to make it easier in the long run. You have to build up some more strength, and if you're any kind of lifting or been at the gym or anything like that, you're probably going to build up some bent arm strength doing bicep curls, bench press, what. You haven't built up straight arm strength. So over this course, we're going to build that up from a very foundation, depending on where you want to start in the course, and it's going to make it easier and easier. Think of it like you're bending your knees. I can stand here, I could talk all the time throughout this. It's a bit uncomfortable to do. It's also not optimal, whereas if I'm stood up and got my legs straight, not only looks nicer, but at the same time it's easier in the long run. But if I haven't built up the strength, if I'm always used to holding it like this, all of a sudden straightening them is really difficult. So we want to make sure we maintain straight arms. Next thing we're going to talk about is on finger positioning and hand positioning. In terms of fingers, you want to have them relatively close together, and you want both the fingertips to touch. You want the first knuckle of the palm and the lower palm to be touching the floor. You don't want a fully flat hand. You want 3 points of contact with the ground to be able to maintain this balanced position. Next thing you want to do is you don't want the hands spread out super wide. In yoga particularly, a lot of teachers will talk about the fact that you need to spread your hands wide to have enough surface area. However, there is an issue with this, is that you're not able to exert as much force, particularly with the pinky finger. I only realised this quite recently. As I was doing my handstands, I was spreading my fingers out wide, and my pinky finger, if you lean forward on it, it's not strong enough to apply enough force on its own. It's more there to help out with everything else. So just leaning forward through and having the fingers together, you're actually able to exert more force. And that's the key thing. It isn't about spreading over a wider surface area, it's how much force you're actually able to exert. And then if you're going to topple over, you're able to push yourself back and exert enough force to be able to stop yourself from falling over. The next thing is with hand positioning. Now, with your handstand, especially when your aim is at the end of this course to be able to complete the objective of having a handstand when you're looking up at the sky or with your eyes closed, you're going to want your hands to be shoulder width apart. That is 2 fist distance between the hands. And as I've taught people in the past few months, I noticed that a lot of students end up defaulting to something that I did. I had my hands like this, which I thought were shoulder distance apart and I thought was perfectly fine. But you can still learn your handstand that way, but it's just not optimal to be able to do in the long run as you want to build up to more and more skills in the future. And I built this course around being able to get you slowly building up the strength and mobility required to be able to do those skills without having to go back to square one in the future. So that means you want your hands to be this wide apart. This is shoulder width apart. This isn't, this isn't, this isn't, this also isn't. Hope that makes sense. There is one exception to this rule that I follow, is that if your shoulder mobility is really lacking, it is okay to hold it a bit wider if you're really struggling. But you do want to try and drill as much as these, having it shoulder width as you possibly can. And if you are limited in set flexibility and you can't do it shoulder width, that's when you really want to follow all the mobility drills that I should show you throughout this program and work up to improving it to the point where you are able to do, so it doesn't hold you back any further. The next aspect I'm going to talk to you about is speaking of controlling the hand positioning, is around what is important in your handstand. Is a good strong core important? Kind of, but so many people who haven't handstanded before, and I talk to them about my practice and say, you must have a really strong core. I'm like, yeah, I've got abs, but that's not the difference between being able to do a handstand or not. The key is having strong wrists and shoulders. I can kick up into my handstand now, and I can pie up here like so and still hold it. The leg and core positioning isn't majorly important. Don't get me wrong, we're still going to do some stuff on that. It is beneficial to have overall, to have a strong body and to be able to maintain yourself as one cohesive unit across. But the wrists and shoulders are the foundation you're going to want to build on. And if you haven't got that down, it doesn't matter how many crunches or sit-ups you do, you're not going to be able to hold your handstand well. Next one is about walking on your hands. Can you do it? Yes. Next one is about walking on your hands. Can you do it? I'm not going to stop you in the sense, but it drills bad patterns into your mind when you're learning your handstand. The reason for this is that if you're trying to walk, or if you are bouncing and then you come out of your handstand and you use the walking to be able to maintain your bounce, this is what your brain is going to tell you to do every time that you lose your bounce. Rather than actually being able to try and maintain it yourself, you're going to be walking around everywhere and not maintain a handstand in one place. Once you've got a handstand in one place and you're used to it, it's going to be very easy to then walk because you've already learned how to be able to hold that bounce. But if you're teaching yourself that the way to bounce is to be able to walk, it's going to be very hard for you then to get out of that habit of doing so. So I'd recommend staying away from it for the first bit of your practice until you've maintained a handstand over like 15 to 20 seconds or so. Then you can start adding that onto your practice, and it will be pretty quick, really, I found, to be able to actually add it into. As you're coming out of your handstand, come down. I talk about this, how to fall in a fear of falling video. The final thing is on the SAID principle, specific adaptations to impose demands. If you're training this regularly, it's going to lead to you improving. Whatever you're working on is specifically going to lead to that ultimate end point. The course I've designed to work through this kind of principle. You're imposing demands on your body over time that's going to build you up to leading to objectives. There are 5 phases in this course, each phase with an objective to achieve, which typically is holding something for 30 seconds. There is slight variations on 1 or 2, but the aim is to reach that goal. And then you can move on to the next phase. And to achieve that, we're going to impose demands on our body, some of which will be just working on building up more time in that specific objective pose, maybe getting on 15 seconds of it rather than 30. But the key thing is there are exercises that will help you towards that pose that still work on building the strength or the mobility or the bounce that's needed, but it might not be the same pose. And you're going to use those demands on your body to build up to being able to achieve that objective, pass the test, move on to the next one. So you move on from phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 until you finally get your handstand. And this could take a while. I didn't design this course as a 30-day handstand challenge, which I see a lot on things like Instagram, and it would be a lot more flashy, and I'd probably sell more courses. I don't know how long your handstand journey is going to take. It really does depend on where your baseline is. Enjoy the journey as you're working through it. And it sounds kind of cheesy, enjoy the journey, but it is really important that you don't focus fully on, I need to achieve it this soon. You focus on improving day by day and working on it and enjoying the process as you do it. Following these principles is really going to aid you throughout the handstand journey. The next step for you will be taking the proficiency test so that you can see where you're actually at in the ladder. Take it, see what you can do and what you can't do, and what the objectives for the later phases are. Then choose your phase, work through it, pass the objectives, and move on to the next one. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the journey as you work through and climb up the ladder. I'll see you in the next video.